Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be ranking the main characters from the anime Death Note. I won't be doing every character, just the ones I feel had the most bearing on the plot. First we have the Chief, Light's father. The Chief is easily one of my favorite side characters in the show. He's done very realistically with how he feels about El suspecting Light. This man does what a good father should do in these situations he's put in. He has flaws that make sense and good qualities that drive him to take action when necessary. The Chief is A tier for me, one of the best side characters ever in my opinion. Next is Makami, also known as X-Kira. Makami was really interesting at first. He had a lot of similar qualities to Light, being that he had a facade of controlling his emotions when it was necessary, but once he got the chance to go crazy against the people he felt were evil, we got to see another side of him that he doesn't show to others. His backstory is explained very, which makes his motivations for helping Kira reasonable. The problems I have with this character is 1. I wish we got to see more of him making his own decisions to give him more character, and 2. But think the writers realized how similar he was to Light, so they made him start making stupid decisions to end the series. Makami was shown as a very smart man with decent reasoning, understanding what Kira wanted when the time came. However, in the end, Makami goes against Kira's orders, and that's what gets them caught in the end. It felt very out of character for Makami to make such an obvious mistake that could have been easily avoided had he just done what he was told to do. I still really enjoyed his character, but he wasn't perfect, so I'll give him B tier. We have another task force member, Matsuda. This is another one of the best side characters in this show. He's the kind of middle area on the task force, having both an understanding of why Kira is killing criminals and why he needs to be caught. Matsuda is very open and honest with his peers, even if that gets him ridiculed sometimes. He's very good-natured and always wants to do what he feels is right. His one character flaw is that he's a bit naive and has trouble making decisions for himself, but this only adds to his character's likability. The only thing about Matsuda is that I wish there was more of him, as we only really get small moments with him other than his own episode. Overall, he's a great character, so I'll give him A tier. Next is Higuchi, also known as Y Kira or Yotsuba Kira. He was a decent temporary replacement for Light while L was still suspicious of Light. There's nothing particularly special about his character, as he's more of a plot point than anything else, something used to keep the story moving. However, for what Light was planning, he's the perfect candidate. He's greedy, lusts for power and status. He did everything Light wanted him to do. So even though he's not my favorite character, I think he plays his part in the story well, so I'm putting him in B tier. Next we have Demigoda, a spokesperson for Kira. There's not too much to say about him. He's a greedy businessman that just looks for the best ways to benefit himself. He's very similar to my opinion on Higuchi. However, he can be a little too much for the little of him there is. He's decent enough for the show, so I'll keep him at C tier. Coming up is Watari, L's butler. I like Watari as a side character. He's just as mysterious as L is. However, there's barely any of him in the show. He barely talks, and we don't get much interaction between him and any other characters. I feel like he's a really big missed opportunity for the show, as he had a lot of interesting qualities that could have been explored more naturally than how the show revealed who he really was. I feel he belongs in C tier. We now have Pember, an FBI agent. Ray is pretty much just a plot device used to keep the story moving. There's nothing special about him in the show or as a character. I think he would have been done better if they gave him more character development. This way we'd feel worse when he died. He had some decent qualities, but they were very surface leveled, so I'll keep him in C tier. Not a bad character, just needed more depth to him. Next, another task force member, Izawa. I really liked Izawa in the second half of the show. I actually think he was one of the better characters in the second half. He realizes all the connections he should have made before with L and starts to become a more useful character, still making his own personal decisions but done based on understanding the task at hand. It was strange how easily he was swayed to just start suspecting Light because a random person he just met said so, but it makes more sense getting further into the second half. The first half of the series with L, he didn't have much of a character till the Y Kira arc started. So overall I'll give him B tier. Now we have our first Shinigami character, REM. I enjoyed REM as a character. She brought new information into the show at the time there was a stalemate between L and Light. Her motivations are a bit odd, considering she's a Shinigami that loves a human, but I think it works overall for the story. I do however wish we got to see more of her in the show to get a better understanding of her character. It seems she loves Misa because her other Shinigami friend also loved Misa and died to protect her, so Rem felt obligated to also be a protector of Misa. Rem is a decent character, but I would have liked a little bit more of her, so I'll rank her B tier. Next is Naomi Misora, a former FBI agent and the fiancée of Ray Pember. She is my favorite female character in the show. We really only get to see her for 2-ish episodes, and yet we learn so much about her and feel exactly what she's going through. Her understanding and logical reasons are almost as good as Elle's are, being able to deduce how Kira killed the FBI agents in the previous episodes. For what we get to see about her, everything about her character is perfect. I only wish there was more of her in the series, but she'll still get A tier for me. We now get to one of the orphans from Wami's house, Mello. I think Mello is a really interesting character to add to the show. It gives Light a chance to go up against a criminal who can actually fight back unlike his other victims. Mello is someone who, unlike Nier or Elle, Light has to worry about being killed by. Mello is the riskiest person for Light to go up against, as there were several moments when Mello could have killed Light had he known who he was up against. The one problem with Mello is that there's not enough of him. He's only around for 1/3 of the second half of the show and then randomly comes back at the end without any real explanation as to why. If they had given Mello more screen time and explained his actions more, he would be ranked higher, but for now he gets B rank. Now we have another orphan from Wami's house, Nier, the boy who cornered God. Nier as a concept seems pretty interesting. He's supposed to be the successor to Elle, so there's a lot of expectations that he can actually be better than Elle is. However, when we get to know Nier, he turns out to be an extremely watered-down version of Elle. He can deduce decently well half the time, but more often it's Mello who reveals crucial information to Nier instead of Nier figuring it out himself. He doesn't have any of the personality that Elle did. You could replace him with an answer key from a test booklet and you wouldn't know much of a difference because he seemingly has the correct answer to everything without a proper explanation as to why, and even when there is an explanation, the reasoning can be half-baked as well. Nier at one point seemingly randomly picks out a person from a crowd of people and says that's the person who's helping Kira. The manga explains his reasoning better. However, even the reasoning doesn't entirely make sense as to why he came to that conclusion. Nier had no reason to believe Light would give the notebook to just some random person he never met. It would have made more sense for Nier to look into known associates of Light and the people they associated with as well. Nier winning in the end is also very forced as it relies on Mello interfering for very little explained reasoning. Makami making a mistake that isn't in character for him, and Light allowing there to be an opening in the first place when there wasn't any previous events that would have made Light underestimate Nier. In the end, the story really tries to force Nier to be the character to watch but doesn't give us anything interesting to actually watch about him. Nier doesn't succeed because he's smart so much as the plot just makes him succeed because it demands it. His lack of interesting characteristics and bad story writing surrounding him makes me put him in D tier. There is some interesting quality he has, such as him playing with his toys, and he does make some decent deductions sometimes. Next is the clear star of the show, Ryuk. Ryuk is my favorite Shinigami in the series. The entire story exists because of his own boredom in the beginning. He has his own mysterious aura around him while also being very humorous. Ryuk can go from a goofy side character to creepy demon very well. He plays the parts of multiple personalities without any of them feeling like they're a different character. There are some moments when he's not in the show, but when he does appear he's always great to watch. So he's S tier for me. Next is Misa, the second Kira. I don't like anything about Misa. I can understand the point of her character being there for story purposes, but they could have replaced her with anyone. She's annoying and obnoxious in every scene she's in. There's nothing redeeming about her in my opinion. I had wished they'd make her more intelligent and useful instead of just a puppet for Light to control. She's the worst part about this show in my opinion because she doesn't fit the tone of the show compared to every other character, so she gets E tier. Next we have another girlfriend of Light, Takata. She's an okay character. She does a decent job at what she was brought in the show for, but there's not really much going on with her other than her following Light's plans. She's basically a more intelligent, more tolerable version of Misa. But Misa got more backstory and screen time. If Misa and Takata switched places, I think the story would be overall better. As of now though, she gets C tier. Now we get to the protagonist of the show, the god of the new world, Light Yagami. Light is a very interesting character despite there not being much backstory to him. He's got his father's ideology about justice but in a twisted form from the Death Note's power and the influence of a bored Shinigami, encouraging his psychotic side. Light is very prideful and idealistic, but he doesn't like to be opposed. Any contradiction he meets to his ideology he brushes off as the opposing side being evil. He's extremely intelligent but not very wise, which leads him to making clever decisions based on his pride instead of avoiding the conflict altogether. Light loses a bit of this in the second half as he becomes a person so overconfident in himself and his power that he doesn't consider the best options in any situation anymore. He just does what satisfies his pride, and this ultimately leads to his downfall. Despite this, it never felt out of character for Light, and no matter what he did, it was always entertaining to watch. Light gets S tier. Last but not least, the greatest detective in the world, L. L is my favorite male character in the show as well as my overall favorite character in the series. There's a lot of mystery behind who he is even after we finally meet him. He's clever and wise and also has a witty charm to him. He has clear character flaws such as his difficulty in interacting with other people and trusting them. This works into his character and story purposes as Light uses this against L or Leon. L is the one person in the whole world capable of finding Kira, and he manages to narrow it down to one suspect, at the same time deducing the capabilities of said suspect. L's intellect and influence over police agencies is the one reason he was able to stay in the game as long as he did. His witty charm and mysterious aura make him one of the most interesting characters in the show. His rank is easily S tier, and these are the main characters in the anime Death Note ranked. Would you rank them any differently? Let me know in the comments.